Everly, what did you play at your drum recital? Assuming you played the drums, but was there a particular song? What did you play? What? All right now? Oh, okay. Wait, who's that by? That's was good. Did you do anything, Emerson? No, just Everly with the drums. Very good. Do you have a drum set at home to practice on or pads? Do you have a whole set or? Okay, cool. That's good. Very good. Huh. Let me turn this up. Good deal. You do guitar, right? Do you do guitar? You do piano and drums? Anything else? Yes, voice. And you do guitar. Do you do anything different or just guitar? Piano and what? Bass and voice. Okay, good deal. But you guys are busy, that's for sure. I like it. Very good, very good. I did piano and clarinet and tons of voice. I don't play piano or clarinet anymore. I mean, the only time I play piano is if I need to check a part on something I'm singing. But I still sing all the time. Usually I don't get paid. Sometimes I do get paid. Works out. You get a skill you can get paid for. That's always good, right? Of course, I usually only get paid if somebody gets married or somebody dies. That's when they hire me. Come in and sing for weddings and funerals. So, yip, 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 weddings and funerals. So how many lessons do we have left? Do you know? We've got like two more after this and then exams and presentations. Are you doing okay with your research projects? Yeah, you started them? You're working on it? You haven't started it yet? What's your subject on yours? You don't know yet? You haven't even picked your subject yet? Have you picked your subject yet? No? For your research project? Better get on it. So Evan's last day is going to be next week, just so y'all know. So it'll just be you girls after next week. Next week's his last day. What is that? What kind of bird is? Okay, I don't recognize that. That's new. All right, I'm gonna have to look that up. I don't know what that was. It was pretty, but I don't know what he was. It's too wet to go out there and fill up the feeder, and I left all my cushions out and didn't cover anything because I thought it was just maybe gonna sprinkle, and instead it poured. I covered the birds up with the tarp, thinking that would help, but then the wind blew the tarp off and they still got wet. So now everything's wet. That's all right. We're gonna get them sorted out, shipped out of here today. Need to go back to the farm. Oh, don't forget to turn your labs in. So if you've got them, you might want to toss them over there before you forget. While we're waiting on Evan. Rainy. It was really big thunder this morning when I was getting dressed, and Ozzy was curled up at my feet, terrified. It shook the house kind of thunder, like whoa, whole house vibrated, and he was just at my feet, just so I had to give him his happy pills. So he's flying high in the crate right now. He's living the good life. He's woo. He is definitely not having the best day. He does not love thunderstorms at all. But he'll be all right because he's got good happy pills. And hi, good morning. I'm Danny. No, I'm Kimberly. You're Kimberly, and you're Emily. It's nice to meet you, Emily. Emmeline. Oh, I like that even better, actually. It's really pretty. You can sit anywhere you would like. Evan's usually on time, so he should be just a minute. He usually sits there, but wherever you'd like. And you two find a spot wherever you want to go. Yep. We have one other family coming in this morning. And then that's my other normal student that I'm waiting on. He should be here in just a minute. So now we have EQ because we have Emerson, Emmeline, and Everly, and then Evan is on the way. And I don't know what the other guest's name is, but if it's an E, I'm gonna go play the lottery. So
I think you're our friend James.
Is it Kimberly?
I'm
Oh, I mean, sorry, not Kimberly.
Bethany.
Bethany, yes. Okay, so it's James. All right, yes. Kimberly, Beth, yes. So yeah, you can get wherever you're comfortable. Absolutely. Yeah, just find a spot. And then, yeah, that's funny. All right, so James, so yeah, gonna mess up the pattern. Gonna mess it up. Gonna mess it up. It was so good there for a minute. Yeah. Very friendly. I like friendly. Let's see. All right. Y'all found us okay?
Your directions are right there.
I got it. It's the parking that like you got to get people parking right, or it gets crazy at carpool because then there are people on like if somebody parks on both sides of the street, then they can't get through, and then it gets and especially because it should be done raining by the time people are getting picked up. I hope. So because we have to go outside like after this my older group, we have out there quails. We've raised quails. They're going home today. So we have to box them up. So I'm like, I put the tarp over them thinking, well, maybe I'll keep the coop relatively dry. And then the wind blew the tarp off. And my husband was like, I told you to bungee cord it. And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't want them to like suffocate. So I like laid it loosely on the top. But so they were yeah, so they're going home today. They're very cute. They were very fun to raise. They were really dumb animals. We've learned they don't help themselves at all, if you know what I mean. So it's been they've been a challenge. So but it's been a good challenge. I think we learned some things along the way. I sure did. I learned I'm not doing it again. But it's all right. It was good. It was good.
At least you have the experience.
Yes, I can say we got eggs. We hatched them. Like it was anywhere you want to go. Absolutely anywhere you're comfortable. No, you're great. You're great. No, you're good. So Bethany. Okay, so that's good. They'll two together. And then we have so next year we have enrolled Grant and Maven for this class. So we've got two already that are do you know Maven too? All right, very good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I really liked her. She was really friendly when she came. I was like, oh, this is great. Yep. So that's good. So Maven. All right. Maven was fun. I liked Maven when she visited. She jumped right in when we did lab. Like she and Maddox just jumped right in. They're like, yeah, we'll do what everybody else is doing. It's good. All right. Well, I'm looking at the clock, so we'll go ahead and start when other people come in. We'll just pause. So Emmeline, just for context, so that we started this whole class way back in the fall, and we started with things like ecosystems and the environment, and then we moved along through genetics and plants and animals, and now we're in our last unit, which is kind of the human anatomy and physiology of things. So we're talking a lot about human body systems and whatever. And this week it's circulatory and respiratory. Last week it was musculoskeletal, and this is my friend. What's his name, ladies? Come on. I'm gonna wait till you remember. Wilhelm. anyway, Wilhelm is named for Wilhelm Röntgen, who was the guy who discovered the X-ray, so it's appropriate. So Wilhelm has been hanging out with us for the last couple of weeks as we go through this unit. He's not always here, but he's here. He's here now to hang with us. All right. So we are going to do circulatory and respiratory system. All right, girls, will you help Emmeline understand the purpose of the pennies? What do we do with the pennies? Emerson, what do we do with the pennies? Oh, are we very quiet this morning? So I will ask questions, and if you know the answer, you get a penny. And then what do the pennies do, girls? Get Skittles on the way out the door at the candy machine. That's how it works. Excellent. So it's a little bribe for class participation. So that's how we roll. We got somebody? Hi, you're Bethany. Hi, Bethany. I'm Danny.
Shake your hand,
Oh,
but
yes. Hi, James and Danny. Come on in, take a seat.
thank you.
Make yourself comfortable. So you know Emily. This is Everly and Emerson. And I don't know where Evan is. You're the only non-E today, we decided, because we've got Emerson, Emmeline, Everly, and usually Evan right there, but I don't know where he is. So we're in our last unit of biology, which is our human anatomy and physiology. And today it's circulatory and respiratory systems. And I was just saying that when I ask questions, if people know the answers, and you guys can play along too, you can get a penny, and then the pennies are used in the candy machine on the way out the door to get Skittles. So works for fun. All right, let's see. Are we ready? We ready? Let's do it. All right, so we are talking first about the function of the circulatory system. We're going to start with the circulatory system. So there are two main things that get transported throughout the body by means of the circulatory system. Does anybody know one or two of those? Do you know?
Oxygen?
Oxygen is one. You are right. Yeah. And I'm going to put a pile of pennies for you, okay? And the other would be nutrients, right? That's what is going through our circulatory system at all times. That's the purpose. All right. It also removes waste from our tissues, and it works with the immune system to protect against illness. So your circulatory system, your respiratory system work in concert, your immune system, and your lymphatic system is kind of involved too. And we'll talk about that a little bit today as well. So here's your heart. Does anybody know the name of the muscle that does all the pumping? It's the name of the heart muscle. Do you know it?
The cardiac.
You're very close. It is a type of cardiac muscle. Very, very good. So I think you've earned a penny for that. So it's myocardium is the name of the actual muscle. And in 1 year, the human body can pump enough blood to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool. So if you ever watch the Olympics and see those guys swim, that's a big pool, right? So your heart does a lot of work, right? A lot of work. All right, so now, click, click, click. Oops. Well, I showed that one. So your upper chambers in your heart are called, each is called an atrium. Together, it's called atria. So your plural is atria. So you have a right and left atria. Now, if you're looking at you have to keep this in mind the whole time when we're looking at diagrams. When we're looking at diagrams of the heart, we're looking at it as if we are looking at someone else's chest. So see where it says right atrium? What side of the picture is that on? Right or left? It's on the left, right? But in your body, your right atrium would be, like my right atrium would be over here versus over here. But when you're looking at me, that's your left, right? So you have to remember that images and diagrams of the heart are represented, they're labeled representative as to how they are fixed in the person we're talking about. But when you're looking at it, it's reverse, right? So you have a right atrium and a left atrium. And then the bottom chambers are called what? Anybody know? So those are our ventricles. So the atria's jobs are to kind of collect the blood and drop it into the ventricles. And the ventricles do the pumping, okay? So the ventricles are the more muscular parts. The atria collect, drops into the ventricles ventricles pump. And the ventricles pump to two different places, depending on which ventricle we're talking about. So what's the largest blood vessel? Does anybody know the name of that one right there? That's the one that leaves the heart with your oxygenated blood and sends it to your whole body. And that is your aorta. That's your largest blood vessel in the body. Now, some people have an issue where like their aorta can tear, and most of the time you'll die. Not always. Sometimes if you get in just a little tear, they can fix it. But if your aorta tears, it's really, really bad because it's taking all the blood that's being pumped out of your heart and then sending it. It's like your main on-ramp to your highway of circulatory system. All right, so you have valves in between. You've got valves in between your right atrium and your right ventricle, and then you have a valve between your left atrium and your left ventricle. And if you look, You've also got pulmonary valves and an aortic valve. So the valve that goes from your right atrium to your right ventricle is called a tricuspid valve. Okay, now we're going to use our Greek and Latin roots for a minute. It's called tricuspid. That tells you something about what it looks like. What do you think it might look like, seeing as it's called tricuspid? Three of something, right? So a tricycle has how many wheels? Three. So we know it has three something. Okay, these teeth, your pointy teeth, your canines, are cuspids. So it's three pointy flaps is basically what that valve looks like. It's like three pointy flaps. So it goes through that valve into your right ventricle, and that keeps it from splashing backwards into your right atrium. You don't want your blood to go backwards. A little bit's okay if that happens. Some people have a little bit of backflow, but you don't want a lot. You want it to go in one direction. Then it's going to go through another valve right there, which is a pulmonary valve, and that sends it, where do you think a pulmonary valve would send it? So that's sending it to your lungs. Pulmonary has to deal with lungs. And then it comes back into your left atrium, and it goes through that little valve called a mitral valve. That one only has two flaps instead of three. And then it'll go back into your aortic valve and into your aorta. So what do we call our pacemaker? What's our natural pacemaker? What keeps the heart beating at a regular pace? Does anybody know what that's called? So that's your SA node. And it tells the heart to beat, how fast to beat, and when to beat. And it's right up there in your right atrium. It's like a highly innervated, nerve-dense little area that keeps your whole heart working in sync. Now, if this fails and doesn't work well, we have artificial pacemakers that can be implanted into your heart that will keep your heart beating regularly. Because some people's hearts don't beat regularly anymore, and it's usually because there's a problem with that SA node. So this is just a quick, that's a quick animation, and it'll show you, you can see everything we just said about the valves. So if you look, there's your valves in there. And it'll turn it a little bit so you can see it from a different angle. You see that tricuspid valve has three versus the two on the other side at the mitral. So that's kind of what it looks like when it's beating. All right, so here's the circuit. So you have oxygen poor blood, okay? This is blood that's already been to your tissues, and your tissues have taken nutrients and oxygen from it, and it needs to go back to the heart. So it comes from your body, and where does it go first? Does anybody know where it goes first? So first, it's going to go to your right atrium, and it's going to get there from one of two ways. So once you look at the blue color, okay, typically blue means oxygen poor or deoxygenated blood. So it's blood that's already been sent to your tissues, and your tissues have taken what they need, and now it's going back to your heart and lungs, all right? So you have a vena cava, which is a really big vein that comes into your heart. You have one that comes from the bottom of your body, and it's called an inferior vena cava. You have another that comes from the top of your body, and that's called a superior vena cava. So superior meaning above, inferior meaning below, right? So you have one that's coming this way, one that's coming this way. Where that superior vena cava, where do you think all that blood that's deoxygenated is coming from? Where has it been if it's coming from above your heart? Yeah, your brain. Exactly right. That's blood coming from your brain. And then your inferior vena cava has most of the rest of your body, right? So they come in and it goes into your right atrium. And where does it go? Oh, there you go. Where does it go from your right atrium? Do you know? Does anybody know? So it falls from your right atrium into your right ventricle. Right atrium into your right ventricle. Then your right ventricle is going to pump. And where is it going to pump it to? Do you know? It's going to pump it to your lungs. All right, and there it's going to be oxygenated. So now we have oxygen-rich blood, and it's going to come from your lungs, and it's going to go to what part of your heart, do you think? Do you know? Guess. So it's going to go to your left atrium. So your deoxygenated blood went to your right atrium and it fell into your right ventricle. It was pumped to your lungs. It comes back down. Now it's going to be in your left atrium. And then from your left atrium, it's going to fall into where? The left ventricle. She is right. Fall into the left ventricle. And then where does it get pumped to? It's going to get pumped really hard. So it's going to get pumped through that aorta, that big vessel we talked about that leaves the heart, into the rest of your body. Which of these four chambers of your heart, your right atrium, your right ventricle, your left atrium, and your left ventricle, which one do you think pumps hardest? What do you think? Very good. Your left ventricle is going to pump hardest because it's trying to push that blood to your whole body. So it's got the hardest pump. All right, so here's a little graphic. So let's try and follow it. We are going to start at the lungs. All right, so we're going to start at the lungs. We're going to look over here on the right. And you see that red line coming down? Now it says pulmonary vein. Okay, now here's where you need to really pay attention to something. Typically, we think of veins as carrying deoxygenated blood, blood that's been used and is going back to the heart. We typically show them in blue. Arteries we typically think of as having oxygen-rich blood, and we typically show them in red. The exception is pulmonary artery and pulmonary vein. And the reason is because veins don't carry deoxygenated blood. Veins return to the heart. That's how you have to remember veins. Arteries don't carry oxygenated blood. Arteries leave the heart. And that's because your pulmonary artery is carrying deoxygenated blood, but it leaves your heart, leaves your heart and goes to your lungs. And your pulmonary vein is carrying oxygen-rich blood, but it's coming from your lungs to your heart. So veins go to the heart, arteries leave the heart. If you remember it that way, you'll be good. So your pulmonary artery, you see it's red, so that blood is oxygenated. Pulmonary vein. So it comes from your pulmonary vein, comes down and around, and it falls into where? Here it goes. Here's your pulmonary vein, and where's it going to fall into? Left, everybody. Left atrium. Very good. And then it falls into your left ventricle, and it gets pumped, and it goes to your aorta and out. Okay, so this is going to represent your aorta and its branches. So then it comes down here into the rest of your body. All right, it goes through your whole body, oxygenates your tissues, gives nutrients to your tissues. Then it comes back out the other side of those tissues. Now it's oxygen poor or deoxygenated. That's why it's now blue, right? So then it's going to come this way through either your inferior or your superior vena cava. Here's your plural, vena cavae, right? And it's going to fall into which chamber? Everybody, right atrium. And then it's going to fall into right ventricle, and then it's going to get pumped right here through a pulmonary artery because it's leaving the heart, but it's still blue, it's still deoxygenated, to the lungs where it gets oxygenated, back out the other way and around and about again. Big old circle. How long do you think it takes for one red blood cell to complete a whole circle in the body? Emerson, what do you think? How long? What'd you guess? 2 seconds. Emmeline? 5 seconds, Everly? 4 seconds. James, what do you think? 10 seconds. All right, James is going to be closest. 20 seconds for a single red blood cell to make a whole circuit through your body. That's still pretty fast. Less than a minute, basically all your blood's getting cycled through. So that's pretty impressive. All right. What is the name for red blood cells? Does anybody know the scientific name for red blood cells? So we call these erythrocytes, and they are your red blood cells. All right, we'll come back to that in a minute. So your arteries are usually shown in red, and your arteries carry blood from your heart to your tissues, right? So arteries leave the heart, always arteries leave the heart. Typically they carry oxygenated blood, not always, because pulmonary artery doesn't, right? So arteries leave. What are the smallest blood vessels in your body, Paul? Do you know? So these are your capillaries. These are the teeny ones. This is when you cut your finger while your finger bleeds. Capillaries, right? And they join up with arteries and veins. They're what connect the arteries to the veins. They're the connection point, and they're teeny, teeny, tiny. And then what do we typically show in blue? We show arteries in red, and what do we typically show in blue? Veins, you got it. Veins are typically shown in blue. All right, so looking at veins and arteries. Look over here at the images of veins and arteries. See the artery and then the vein. What do you see that's different? Somebody tell me something that's different between the two. What do you notice? What do you notice? What do the veins have in them that the arteries don't have? Those are little valves, one-way valves. Okay, so your arteries are under high pressure because your heart is pumping blood into them. Your veins have a lot less pressure. So when your blood is flowing through your veins, the little valves will kind of open and close with each little pulse, and it keeps the blood from flowing backwards into your tissues when it's trying to get to your heart. So that's what the valves are for. And look at the walls of the artery. Do you see how much thicker the wall is? Those walls of the arteries are really thick because they're under pressure. All right. So which of these veins or arteries are going to have the most pressure? What did I just say? Arteries. Okay, arteries have the most pressure. So they're at the top here. What do we call the vessels that are slightly smaller than arteries, but they're still coming from the heart? The arteries branch into them. So these are going to be arterioles. Okay, so think of it like a tree. The aorta would be the trunk of the tree. The branches would be the arterioles, and the twigs would be the capillaries. It just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So after a capillary, what do we come to next? Does anybody know? So after capillaries, it's going to be venules. So these are like your tiny, this is like if you're going backwards on the tree. So then these are branches again, but they're going backwards on the tree. And then if it's not artery, what's the opposite? Vein. You got it. There you go. So the pressure is going to increase. The pressure is going to be highest in arteries, least highest in veins. When they take your blood, like when the doctor takes your blood to draw your blood, where do they draw it from? What kind of vessel? You know? A vein. Yeah, they draw it from a vein, right? So it doesn't have a ton of pressure. Have you ever seen in person or a video of somebody who gets an artery cut in an accident? So when an artery is cut, it doesn't just bleed like a vein. It spurts like a fountain because it's under pressure. So if you get a deep cut and it's an artery, it will spurt out with each heartbeat. You'll see it squirt. It's really not good because you lose a lot of blood if you cut. So what color are your veins? When you look at your arms, can you see your veins? They look blue. Are your veins really blue? We've been showing them as blue this whole time, right? In a graphic, we've been showing them as blue. Well, let's see. Are they really blue? We get a commercial. We're getting close, unfortunately, to elections, so we're going to start getting political commercials sooner or later. This is just Planet Fitness, so that's not bad. But I hate the political commercials. They're my least favorite.
Here in Bristol, and today we're going to try and answer the question, why are your veins blue? Let's start thinking about what's in your veins. Blood is flowing through your body. Blood is very important. It carries lots of different chemicals needed throughout our bodies, including one of the most important, oxygen. That oxygen is carried by a chemical that's called hemoglobin, which is in your red blood cells. That hemoglobin binds to the oxygen, giving you hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is in your veins and in your arteries. These are slightly different kinds of blood vessels. Arteries carry the blood that's coming away from your heart that's just been pumped, and veins carry the blood back into your heart. So arteries tend to be carrying more oxygen in them. They're carrying the blood coming from the lungs, which is oxygenated. And the veins are carrying the blood back after they've lost their oxygen to the cells that need them. So they have deoxygenated blood in them. Hemoglobin, without the oxygen bound to it, absorbs more red light. So the blood in your veins will look much darker than the blood in your arteries. Blood in your arteries reflects more red light and appears a brighter red. But that doesn't explain why your veins are blue, because actually your veins aren't blue. They might look blue when you see them through your skin. That's because you're seeing this darker blood, and also you're looking at it next to your skin, which is also reflecting some red light. So there's a bit of an optical illusion going on there as well. But you'll notice that your blood never comes out blue if you cut yourself, even if it's on a vein. It will always be red blood that comes out. Your blood is always red, just maybe slightly different shade. This illusion we use to look at by our machine here, the vein viewer. These are used by doctors and nurses in hospitals. They use them to find where your veins are. This can be really useful if you've got triple veins for blood tests. or putting in an intravenous drip, anything like that. This doesn't use red lights, it uses something similar, near infrared light. This is light that we can't actually see, but it's close to red light in the spectrum. So this machine gives out lots of near infrared light, and that light is absorbed more by your veins than it is by your arteries. And this detects the reflections, so it can see where that light's been reflected, where it's been absorbed, and it uses that to figure out where your veins are and to project an image of them onto your own hand.
Well, that's pretty cool, right? All right, so we're going to keep rolling along. I'm watching our time. How many liters of blood in your body? Anybody know? You got about 4 to 6 liters of blood in your body. So if you've ever had a 2-liter bottle of soda from the store, 2 to 3 of those. That's how much blood you have in your body. And blood is composed of plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. This is what your blood looks like if they centrifuge it. If you've ever been to the doctor and they prick your finger and they take that little glass tube and they put it there and it sucks the blood up in the little tube, they'll put a little bit of putty in the bottom of the tube. They'll put it in a centrifuge, which spins it, which uses gravity to pull all the components of the blood apart and separate them, with the most dense at the bottom and the least dense at the top. And that's what it looks like. And that's how they can actually check your iron levels, because they want to make sure you have enough red blood cells there. They call that your hematocrit. So a fun fact, interestingly, young coconut milk can be used as a substitute for blood plasma. And this is something they found out in World War II when blood supplies were low. Obviously, you would have to sterilize that or you'd get very sick, but still interesting, right? So your blood is then, like I said, it's composed of plasma, platelets, red blood cells, and white blood cells. And the plasma carries things like nutrients and water to your body tissues. Your red blood cells, which are your erythrocytes, which we said before, carry hemoglobin and transport oxygen. And which blood cells fight infection? Do you know? White blood cells fight infection. We call these leukocytes. White blood cells fight infection. Very good. So your platelets serve a very important purpose. They stick to broken blood vessels, and they're essential in clotting. If you have low platelets, you could have a bleeding problem. That would not be good. You would not want to bleed out, right? You need to stop bleeding. You need to get blood clots and scabs. So we'll talk a little bit about lymph. You have a lymphatic system, which is separate but involved with your other systems. So your lymphatic system consists of lymph nodes and vessels and fluid that move. So it's fluid that carries important nutrients, sometimes takes microorganisms away, and actually sometimes microorganisms can kind of hitch a ride in your lymphatic system and move around. Cancer does this too. Cancer can take a ride in your lymphatic system and get to other parts of your body. So it's filtered through your lymph nodes. You ever been sick and have your lymph nodes like right here get swollen and hurt? Or sometimes in your armpits, they can get swollen and hurt. That's because that's what filters your lymph. So if they're working really hard, sometimes they can get swollen and they get very tender. Good lymph is returned back to your blood. We're going to skip this one because it's a longer video, but you know how much we love Amoeba Sisters, so you know how to find the videos. The videos are always provided after class, so they can go back and watch it later. So we're going to talk respiratory. Basically, all that did was sum up everything we just said. So now we're going to talk respiratory system. All right. This is for gas exchange, carbon dioxide and oxygen. And this is what helps you exchange those between your tissues. We're going to use the circulatory system as our transportation for gas exchange. But without your respiratory system, without your lungs, you wouldn't be getting that gas to begin with. So it's going to start with your nose. You breathe in through your nose. Then the air moves through your pharynx, which is the back of your throat, through that big long tube, through your larynx, sorry, which is your voice box. Goes through your voice box, passes through your vocal cords, to that big long tube, which is your trachea. And then the trachea divides into 2 bronchi. Those are those big tubes. Here's one here. This is a bronchus and a second bronchus, and together they're bronchi. Those branch out into bronchioles, into your lungs, where it's bronchioles. And then you get to these little air sacs called alveoli. And they look like little bunches of grapes, which allows for a lot of surface area. And that surface area is necessary for gas exchange. All right. So what did I say the back of your throat is called? It's It's your throat before your esophagus starts for your digestive system and before your trachea starts. It's kind of a combined passageway for both air, food, water. That's your pharynx. And it's sort of multi-purpose, and then it divides into your trachea and your esophagus. So your esophagus goes to your stomach, your trachea goes to your lungs. And what's the name of that voice box? Anybody remember? Remember? Larynx. There you go. So that's your larynx is your voice box with your two vocal cords that move like this, right? Side by side. And then what's the name of your windpipe? It's this rigid thing in here. Do you know?
Trachea.
It's a trachea. Very good. That's the name of this windpipe. Do you remember, girls, when we dissected our pigs? We got a really good look at the trachea, right? And it's corrugated. It's made of a bunch of cartilaginous rings. Yeah, we did pigs, we did frogs, we did, what else did we do? We did fish, we did all kinds, sea urchins, worms, we did all sorts of things. Yep. So it kind of reminds me of, you know, those black corrugated plastic drain pipes that people use? It's very much like that. And it's not flexible like your esophagus. It's much more rigid, right? And at the top is that epiglottis. It's that little flap that closes when you're when you're swallowing, so that food and water don't go into your lungs. It's like a little trapdoor that opens and closes. And we could see that really well in our pig, and even the frog had a similar structure when we did it. And what are those two large tubes called that branch off the trachea? Do you remember? Bronchi. You have a great memory. Or did you already know some of this? You know some of it? Very good. And there's one that leads to each lung. And then the smaller tubes are going to be the bronchioles, right? And then the tiny little air sacs are your alveoli, right? And they are the ones that look like I said, they look like little bunch of grapes, right? So how does gas exchange happen in the alveoli? Well, here is a little graphic of it. So here's your alveoli, like a little sack of grapes, right? And you have capillaries all around them. Your air is going to come in. Your oxygen is going to go one way, and your carbon dioxide is going to go the other way. How? Again, it's a concentration gradient. It's all about concentration gradient. So we did that with the little potato cubes back at the beginning of the year, right? We had little potato cubes that we put in iodine, and we saw how far the color change went in, and it was all about concentration gradient. So gas exchange occurs in capillaries that cover the alveoli. Oxygen from lungs diffuses into the blood. CO2 or carbon dioxide from the blood diffuses into the lungs. So this is all diffusion. And what kind of a gradient did I say it was? A concentration gradient. So if you have more carbon dioxide in your blood vessel than you do in that air sac, they're going to balance out. So some will move across that membrane to balance it out. If you have more oxygen in your air sac than in your blood, it's going to move across that membrane too and balance out. So it's diffusion across a concentration gradient. Does anybody remember if that's active or passive? You remember? Diffusion's passive. It doesn't really require energy. It works across a concentration gradient. So breathing, what's the main muscle involved in breathing? Breathing, Everly, you have to know it. You do voice. What's the main muscle involved in breathing? This is your diaphragm, okay? So this is at the base of your chest cavity. It's down here. And when you breathe in, it contracts. And when it contracts, it pulls down. You don't push air into your lungs. It creates a vacuum. When your diaphragm contracts like that and it pulls down, it pulls your lungs down with it, which causes a vacuum that sucks air in from the outside. And when the muscle relaxes, it pushes upward more and it forces the air out of your lungs. And your diaphragm is one of these muscles that you can have both voluntary and involuntary control over. When you're sleeping or even when you're just sitting there, you're not thinking about breathing. It just does it for you. But you can also actively think about breathing, right? You can actively think about taking a deep breath, right? Yeah, exactly. You can actively think about holding your breath. So it's one of those muscles you can do both ways. All right, now, this lady has 2 sets of lungs, all right? And if we have time, we'll go back and watch our amoeba sisters, because we might. So this lady has 2 sets of lungs, all right? Which set of lungs do you think is healthy? Just looking at him, Emerson, yeah, these, obviously, right? What do you think happened to that set of lungs? What's a really unhealthy habit that those are smokers' lungs. Ew. These are real human lungs from cadavers, from people who've donated their bodies for science, right? So she's going to actually show you the difference in how they breathe. All right. She's got a whole apparatus set up and it's pretty cool.
Take a look at these two sets of lungs. This set is pink and healthy. They represent the lungs of a healthy person. But this set doesn't look so great. They represent the lungs of someone who has smoked a pack of cigarettes, that's 20 cigarettes, every day for 20 years. Let's take a closer look at what's happening in the healthy lungs. They're being inflated with air, just like when we breathe. As they fill up with air, both lungs expand like they should and push oxygen into your bloodstream. We need oxygen for our body to work. When we breathe, air passes through our nose or mouth into our trachea or windpipe. In the trachea, air passes cilia. Those are tiny hairs that keep dirt and mucus out of the lungs. From the trachea, air passes into two large tubes. Each tube splits off into many smaller tubes. At the end of these smaller tubes is a cluster of tiny air sacs. There are over 600 million air sacs in our lungs. Imagine how small they must be. Each air sac is covered in small blood vessels that take the blood directly to your heart. The oxygenated blood goes directly to your heart, and your heart pumps into all the cells in your body. Now, back to the smoker's lung. These represent the lungs of someone who smoked for 20 years. These lungs are a blackish brown color because of the tar that comes from each cigarette. Tar is a sticky black substance that is created when some chemicals burn and melt together. The tar created by burning tobacco is similar to the tar that is used on roads. Tar in your lungs may lead to lung problems that can make it hard to breathe. Even though vaping doesn't force tar into your lungs, it does cause your lungs to get inflamed and clogged with blood, pus, and other fluids. The chemicals in cigarettes also cause lung cancer. If you look here, lung cancers have started to form. They start in the cells that line the surface of the lungs, like this white area. The lower portion of this lung doesn't inflate. That is what lung diseases like COPD and emphysema look like. People with these diseases find it hard to breathe and they struggle with even the smallest, easiest activities like walking. Which set of lungs would you like working for you? The choice seems pretty clear.
So did you notice that the smoker lungs only kind of inflated a little bit at the top? They weren't inflating all the way at the bottom, just a little bit at the top. Did you notice that? So do you girls remember like a month or two ago when my dad was in the hospital because he couldn't breathe right? That's why. He smoked for 20 years, but he stopped 30 years ago. So even though he stopped 30 years ago, now he's paying for it. And only the top part of his lungs inflate anymore. And he has to go around wearing oxygen all the time, even though he stopped, which is good because other parts of his body got healthier when he stopped smoking. But damage is done. Don't do it. Just don't do it, right? Just don't do it. Don't do it. It's doing. All right, so go. All right, so now we're going to go back a minute and we're going to watch our Amoeba Sisters one. I wanted to make sure we didn't run out of time because it's the longer video. And then we'll be good to go for lab. Let's see. Do you guys know Amoeba Sisters? They're amazing. They do really good videos. So this is just going to sum up what we just said before.
What I love most about
Plus, we got to get an ad.
Sing.
Yep.
Did you have breakfast this morning? Did you ever wonder after you eat breakfast and your food is digested, how is that glucose getting transported around your body? Or as you take a breath in, how does that oxygen get transported around? Or when you exhale, how does that carbon dioxide get transferred out? Are these only questions I ponder during breakfast? Maybe. But your circulatory system is absolutely fascinating and highly involved in this. In this short intro video of the circulatory system, we will mention some basics about its functions and trace the pathway of how blood travels through your heart. But please know before we get started, there are gigantic textbooks on the circulatory system itself. So Obviously, this video is just an intro. We're going to first talk about blood, the medium of how we transport glucose and gases. As we mentioned in our body systems intro video from many years ago, there are some misconceptions. Human blood is red, and always red, although the shade of red can vary based on how much oxygen is in the blood. Veins and arteries are often drawn in diagrams as blue or red to show whether they have lower or higher concentrations of oxygen. But that's just how it is used in most diagrams. It doesn't mean the blood or the veins or the arteries are actually that color. Veins that you see under your skin may look blue or green, but that involves the way they appear under the skin, and the reason for this would make a great physics topic, but I digress. Human blood has a lot of functions. It maintains a certain pH, temperature, osmotic pressure. All of this is very important for homeostasis. It transports things like hormones, nutrients, and gases, and it's made up of different components. One component includes plasma, the liquid portion. Water, proteins, salts, lipids, you'll find them in this liquid portion of blood known as plasma. Another component includes the cellular component. This means red blood cells, which do the transporting of gases, white blood cells, which can fight infections, and platelets, which are actually cellular fragments, and they're involved with helping your blood clot. Very important when there is damage to the body. Red blood cells have an iron-containing protein called hemoglobin, and that is where the red coloring of blood comes from. So when we're talking about blood and we're just introing the circulatory system, we're going to focus on how this blood moves around in the human body. Human heart anatomy observes the heart divided into two distinct and separated partitions, a deoxygenated or low oxygen partition and an oxygenated partition. There are some human congenital heart conditions that can result in this oxygenated and deoxygenated blood mixing, however. More on that at the end. Arteries carry blood away from the heart. Think A for away. Arteries are typically oxygen rich, but there are exceptions. Veins generally carry blood to the heart. Veins typically are oxygen poor, but there are exceptions. Capillaries are small blood vessels, and it is at the capillary level where oxygen is delivered to organs and tissues and where carbon dioxide will be picked up to travel back to the lungs. So looking at this heart, the right side, and that's the person's right, so for you it will look opposite, pumps deoxygenated blood, and the left side pumps oxygenated blood. We can also see four chambers, the right atrium and right ventricle, and the left atrium and the left ventricle. I like to remember that A comes before V in the alphabet, so that helps me remember that A's for atria are at the top of the heart, V for ventricles are at the bottom of the heart. Atria also have thinner walls than the thicker wall of ventricles. The heart also contains valves, which we'll see when we get to tracing the pathway of blood. The valves are one-way structures that help separate the chambers and also prevent backflow of blood. Ready to take the adventure of a lifetime? An adventure tracing the pathway of blood through the heart? We're going to start with blood that is in a human toe. This blood is deoxygenated. It needs to get to the heart so that it can be pumped to the lungs to pick up oxygen and then be spread throughout the body. It's going to get there through the vena cava, inferior vena cava to be specific, as the superior vena cava is above the heart. The blood enters the right atrium. The right atrium contracts, pushing the blood through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. The right ventricle contracts, pumping the blood through the pulmonary valve to the pulmonary artery. By the way, when you see the word pulmonary, it likely involves lungs. The pulmonary artery takes blood to the lungs. The lungs are where red blood cells in the blood will take on oxygen and release carbon dioxide. Now this blood is oxygenated. It needs to return to the heart so that the heart can pump it throughout the body. The oxygenated blood travels through a pulmonary vein to the left atrium. The left atrium contracts and the blood travels through the mitral valve, also known as the bicuspid valve, into the left ventricle. The left ventricle contracts and pumps the blood through the aortic valve and out a major artery known as the aorta. The aorta is a major artery that carries oxygenated blood throughout the body. Now, I don't want to neglect the fact that the heart needs its own blood supply for delivery of oxygen and glucose. The heart can receive this blood supply through coronary arteries. Coronary arteries branch off the aorta and eventually deliver blood into capillaries. These capillaries deliver oxygen and glucose to the heart. Coronary veins will take the deoxygenated blood to the right atrium, where the blood will eventually travel the pathway to become oxygenated. In fact, to quiz yourself, can you pause the video and trace the pathway of blood again, starting with the right atrium?
We've already done it like 3 times. So
Okay, all together. Right atrium, tricuspid valve,
right ventricle, pulmonary valve,
pulmonary artery,
artery,
lungs,
lungs,
back through the pulmonary vein, left atrium, mitral valve, left ventricle, aortic valve, aorta. Takes us to the body, and then it will eventually return through the vena cava, back to the right atrium again. Whew, it almost makes you want to turn it into a song, but we won't.
And I'll end it there because there's just a few more minutes of that, and you can finish it up at home if you want. All right, so now we are ready for lab, and I will call these other people in. Come on in, gang. So we can start lab.